Shabbat shalom. Months and months and months ago, maybe it was a year or two ago already, I don't even remember. I was talking to a friend of mine who was from Eastern Europe, and we were talking about the weirdness of the times that we live in. And he said something to me. He said, part of what's hard for Americans right now is that you're not used to upheaval. You're not used to chaos. You're not used to it being messy in this way. You're not used to uncertainty. He said to come out of the former Soviet Union and live through some of the upheaval that was. He said, when we were kids in the Eastern European country that he is from, and particularly as Jews, the world was just kind of nastier. And we were kind of used to finding equanimity or stability in the midst of that which is chaotic, which is difficult to swallow. I've been thinking a lot about what he said to me over the past 24 hours. Been thinking a lot about that. To what extent are we as Jews used to living with a certain kind of upheaval, chaos, what have you? To what extent are we as Americans used to our society being in the kind of tumult that perhaps we see and take in and experience? Feels like a different moment qualitatively than, I don't know, a lot of my childhood in the 90s, late 80s, even when I was in my 20s in the 2000s. Feels more tenuous, more tense. There is violence in and around and against Jewish communities that when we were in rabbinical school, didn't really, at least I didn't, we didn't think about it the way we do now. The kinds of security that are now an inevitability, which used to be a curiosity, I would suggest, over 10 years ago when I was in rabbinical school. Kind of what it takes to take care of Jewish institutions against the backdrop of a great deal more chaos. I was thinking about that as a paradigm going into Shabbat, Vayakhel-Pekudei, all of the rules and the stuff and the Mishkan, and you're supposed to do this and that and the other, and there are all these rules for how it is that one prays to God and the priesthood and all of this stuff. On some level, when they're talking about the thing has to have skins and they need to be ram skins and they need to be dolphin skins and skins of this and that and the following materials, I was thinking about it almost as a meditative exercise around what my friend was talking about. Because if you put yourself in the ancient Israelite place in the Torah, well, theirs is a fairly tenuous existence as well. I say that because, as miserable as it may have been, there was a good deal more stability under servitude with Pharaoh. When they were on their way out of the land, I think about that line, the Israelites saying to Moses, what, did you drag us out into the desert because there weren't enough graves to bury us all in Egypt? You can almost laugh at it. It sounds like so petulant against the hour of the delivery of the Israelites. But that, I think that would be to wallpaper over just how tenuous their time was, just how fragile it kind of is to wander in the desert for a couple of days, let alone 40 years. And that's the reason we are so bent out of shape historically and collectively in our narrative, our memory around Amalek. We were just talking about Purim and, revisiting some of the Amalek stuff. That kind of viciousness that kicks you when you're down holds a special place in Jewish memory. because we are a people that understands, that I imagine will understand what it means to live with a good deal more chaos. The reason I say Vayakhel-Pekudei could almost be a meditation around it is because Davka, in thinking and reflecting on what is holy, it doesn't get into anything existential. It doesn't get into fear. It doesn't get into that it's a scary place out there in the desert. It just talks about these materials and Betzalel and Oholiav and the way you're supposed to build it and all this stuff and whatever. It almost gives you this instruction manual that you could almost imagine as being a sort of meditation unto itself. That perhaps one way to deal with the existential part is to focus on some of the details. Make sure you're handling the things that are in your control. Make sure you're doing what you can. Make sure you're paying attention properly. We are, and all of the Jewish organizations send out emails to that effect that we are paying attention because we do need to do what is within our control as a Jewish people in the moments of the chaos or the violence. And focusing on some of those things also allows us to divert ourselves from some of that existential stuff. Maybe it's illusory, or maybe there is a piece of it that is instructional in terms of how it is that one does actually dwell with greater uncertainty and greater chaos, that it's actually important to focus on what is concrete and what is real in front of you. Dare I say, you should focus on the details of what is holy in your own life against the backdrop of all of the abstract and all of the things that you cannot control. Maybe that's one instruction, one way forward. I don't suggest it's a silver bullet. It's not a fix for everything, but perhaps it's one idea. But I'm also thinking about the Hebrew word in this place for perseverance. Hatmada. The root of it is la'amod, omeid, amud, to stand. Amud is a column. Hatmada is this self-reflexive hitpa'el verb of it that I think implies to stand oneself up. It's not enough to stand, but it's that you have to figure out what it is, what it takes to stand against all of that, all of the chaos, all of the stuff, the violence, the difficult times. And it is a translation of perseverance, to persevere, to continue forward. Not to be confused with to perseverate, to overthink the thing, to let the thing in fact swallow you, to let the state and the nature of the chaos or the violence that's out there rest upon you such that it's too heavy for you to be able to stand yourself up. A fine, fine line in English between perseverating and persevering. But I think it's a little bit telling that against the backdrop, this week's Torah portion doesn't do existentialism. It doesn't do cosmic fear. It doesn't do. A friend of ours texted me asking, do you think it's going to get better for the Jews or worse? What do you think is going to happen, like in the short term? Parsha didn't do that. Not this week. Parsha says, here are some things that are holy. And they're closer to you than you might imagine. Hold on to them. Be connected to them. Remember what is tactile, what is concrete, what is connected, what is holy to you in your own life. And hold fast to it. And hatmada, to persevere. We as Am Yisrael continue in that desert, in that fragile place. We've done this before. It's in our cultural DNA. It's another week against the backdrop of 40 years, or the years of Inquisition, or other manners of persecution. We as Jews have a little bit of cultural knowledge, memory. We kind of remember how it feels. We don't feel how it remembers. We remember how it feels in that way. And so it's for us to hold on, keep very careful track of what is concrete, what is real, what is before you, and what is holy. And we put together one step, one foot in front of the other. Shabbat Shalom.